Hello.
From what I know and what I've been told, you know what I mean? But here I go. When I was conceived, my father and mother were both still in high school. My dad was 17 and my mom was 14. My mom was raised Pentecostal, the old school Pentecostal where you even had to play sports in a skirt. She didn't have the best home life growing up, so she hid her pregnancy until around 6 months, up until the point to where there was no hiding it. When she came clean, she got beat. She was stabbed in the stomach with a steak knife, threw her across the kitchen by her hair, and kicked off the porch between her legs. They tried to talk her into an abortion, but she wouldn't agree. I ended up being born on December 10th, 1981. I'm guessing my mom probably went back to school 2 weeks following. From what my aunt, that's only 3 years older, that told me, that's where tragedy started. My very first babysitter, 2 weeks out of the hospital, molested us. My mom was also molested by a family member growing up. She wasn't able to really be a mother to me. She wasn't able to hold me because of showing favoritism. If I cried after 8 p.m., she got beat. She said I was a good baby, though. When I was 2, she gave me to my paternal grandparents to get me out of there and save me from what she went through. When my paternal grandparents got me, they fell in love with me. They said I was so tiny at the age of 2, I could lay in one arm like an infant. I was malnutrition, and they was wondering if I was even going to survive. When I was nursed back to health, my grandma started putting me in pageants. I was Little Miss Wister at the age of 3. I won a lot of pageants and was even put on the Santa Show a couple of times. I rode in the rodeo and was queen one year. I seen pictures and know it was me, but it doesn't seem like I have no memory of the good. When I was 5, my uncle finally got his way with me. I can still remember like it was yesterday. It went on for 3 years. It still don't make sense to me why I didn't say anything. I seen a lot of kids' lives get changed because of him. It was easy for him considering he was a youth minister and took kids to church camp. They left excited and came back looking at the ground. He also got his way with the friends that stayed with the night with my aunt. My dad ended up getting custody of me when I was in the first grade. I went to my mom's on the weekends and for summer breaks. He continued until my mom caught him when I was 8. She got a broom and whooped up on him pretty good. We all went to the church immediately afterwards to talk about it. I remember being humiliated. I didn't tell anyone on my dad's side about it. I went to church one night and my uncle was preaching. He preached on forgiveness. I figured he wouldn't do it again to anyone but I was wrong. I knew he still was when I saw his son that was wearing a cast and a diaper hunch my aunt when she was laying on the ground. I got sick to my stomach. He finally got caught up with and done 10 years on one case. Somehow I blocked it all out until I was a teenager and started having nightmares. I told my aunt about my dreams and she got mad and broke down and said to never mention it again. That's when I knew it wasn't just nightmares. I kind of went into a dark place at that time. I never really felt like I fit in at my dad's. When he got custody of me, he had just married someone with 2 kids and they had one together. I would see them loving on their mom and I craved that. When I was 14, I started drinking a lot and smoking cigarettes. I got alcohol poisoning all the time. I would drink until I passed out. I woke up a couple times being raped. During this time is when the devil made his entrance. When I would go to bed, I would get chills all up the right side of my neck. I'd just cover my head until I went to sleep. I didn't tell anyone about it. I got dropped off at church after a softball game one night, and we had an evangelist, Emmett Spencer, there preaching a revival. When I walked in, he stopped in the middle of his words and told me to get my room blessed. The thing breathing over my right shoulder was not of God. I went out in the spirit that night. It wasn't too long after that I ended up getting pregnant. I hurried up and moved in with my mom before my dad found out, considering he was very prejudiced along with the rest of my family, and I liked black guys. When I was 4 months pregnant, I ended up having a miscarriage. I went into shock and had to have a DNC. It really messed me up. I got pregnant again 3 months later, which made it the second time for my senior year. The first 4 months of me going to the doctor, I kept losing weight. The doctor put me on all kinds of meds to help my appetite, even chemo meds. He suggested me trying marijuana, and it seemed to help. When I went into labor, my grandma called my dad when we were leaving the house, and him and my stepmom beat us to the hospital. That was the end of the prejudice in my family. They fell in love. My son's father was very bipolar. We had lots of fun times, but he would switch up over nothing. He wouldn't say nothing for like 2 weeks at a time, and it would be over something as simple as me putting on makeup. It was very mental and then started becoming physical. Our relationship lasted 4 years. I moved in with my dad after I left him and enrolled in college. During my finals in my first semester, I had a friend that introduced me to meth. She showed it to me and asked if I knew what it was, and I thought salt. She told me it was meth and asked if I wanted to try it, and seen a lot of people around me go downhill from it, and I said no. She said she was going to do it all by herself if I didn't, and she said if I'd take one puff, then that's all she would take. If I didn't, then she would smoke the whole bag. I loved it. I didn't miss a day for over 3 months. When I tried it, a lot of those weird moments in my life made sense, like waking up to drawings that were very detailed and looked like it should have took days. Going to the car wash with someone, spending 4 hours because they used a whole box of Q-tips to clean every groove in their car, and knowing that they were taking shifts keeping me occupied while the other people got high. It all made sense. I realized my son's father was using the whole time we were together, and that's why he didn't sleep. I ended up meeting my middle son's dad not long after that. I was at his house at a party, and my oldest son's grandma came in saying I couldn't date a Mexican and a bunch of weird stuff, so I married him 2 weeks later. I got married as soon as we got together just about. Got pregnant as soon as we got together just about. He was the best father, we just couldn't get along. We both used. I cheated on him all the time. Ended up getting physical, so we went our own separate ways. I felt guilty because I really couldn't love him like he wanted in the way he deserved. So I stayed married to him to try and help with his citizenship. Don't get me wrong, I know I didn't deserve him putting his hands on me. I know now, but I also had to ask forgiveness for my words that are like swords and the way I was too. He went to Mexico for his citizenship and they denied him, and he's been stuck there for 15 years. He calls and checks on our son still occasionally. He has a new family there. Our son took it really hard at first. My step-uncle would keep him occupied. He owned chicken barns, and my son was his right-hand man and also my best friend. I ended up meeting my youngest son's dad at my uncle's house. Of course, he got high too. Our relationship was something else. It wasn't long after we got together, my uncle died in a motorcycle wreck. This pushed me into a dark place. I ended up with demonic oppression. I would go to sleep and wake up and back to sleep, and then I would wake up. It was a whole nother life in the middle. I have no memory of except what I'd been told. The person was not me. This went on for 15 years. I know I got to the point of being so scared someone would see me or talk to me. I would sit in my closet with the door shut. I would drive all the way to work from Bacosia to Poto and call in for my parking spot. I couldn't make myself open the door. My son's dad knew how to work me a little bit. When I started being around family too much, he'd start getting me high again, and I'd been threatened so many times about getting my kids taken, I wouldn't go around them. When I would start hanging around my friends too much, they got high, he would cut the money off. I was not too good either, though. I cheated on him a lot while he watched the kids, spent a lot of time at the casino. We were together 8 years, so really a lot happened. I was told he talked on a family member and some inhumane things happened. I still have nightmares occasionally. I didn't really love him, honestly. I didn't know how to love. He was still my son's father, though, and I would not allow anything to happen to him. I sold my place I was paying on. I had 5 lots commercial property I got a loan for and bought from my great-grandmother. It had a house and a trailer, and I rented out the house, which made my loan payment plus the water bill. I ended up selling it for $2,000 more than what I owed to get out of here. I moved to Newcastle, Oklahoma to restart with me, him, and the kids. It wasn't long after we moved, he started using again. I accused him. He said he was snorting many things up until I caught him. And instead of being mad, I started using again too. I was working at a hardware store and having my checks direct deposited, and he was withdrawing the money before I could pay bills and blaming it on just lies. He was a good liar. We ended up having to move, and I told him he needed to have his mom pick him up at the Salad Soul Y. I did all I could and put 8 years into nothing. Lost everything. My grandpa was very sick when we moved back. I lived with them when we got back. I'd go to take my youngest to see his dad, and it was something else every time. I woke up one time and he was on me, but I was numb and couldn't move. He admitted to putting something in my food. I could only say like 3-word sentences at one point. My mouth and my mind wouldn't work together. I just couldn't anymore. My grandpa went to a doctor's appointment. He had cancer and made it 18 years with only a quarter of his heart. He had a defibrillator put in twice. The cancer and his heart medication worked against each other. They ended up hospitalizing him after his visit, and he went into a coma the next day. Me and my uncle, Carl, and my cousin, we went to see my grandpa, and his sister and my uncle was in the room when I went in. My papa heard my voice, and being in a coma, he tried to open his eyes and raise up his head. They seen it. We left for a while and came back to the hospital that night, and he was so miserable and gargling. I told him, I talked to him and told him how much I loved him, and I promised I was going to straighten my life up and be a good mom and the woman I was supposed to be. See, Papa whooped me only once in my life for telling a lie. He said a man may not have nothing but his word, but as long as he's got that, he's got everything. He ended up passing away a couple hours after our talk. I honestly felt even harder after that. He's the one that kept the family a family, I realized. Oh, I miss him. He did have a pastor to the house twice, Lynn Bullard, to pray with him before he passed. Hallelujah. I ended up getting into an extremely physical, violent relationship after that. It went on for a year. I got my mouth shattered open by a cell phone he threw across the room, which shattered the cell phone too. I went to the ER and said I fell on the back porch. The way I got out of that relationship was by having to go to court. My grandma was taking me to court and getting temporary guardianship on my two younger boys. And I told him the night before court I was taking all my stuff, so maybe if she thought I was moving back, she wouldn't go through with it. I went to court black and blue. I didn't know until I got there. My dad was adopting my oldest. Wow, that hurt. I ended up getting on the needle almost immediately after that. Luckily, most shots I ever done was misses. I never figured out how to do it. I hated myself. I ended up going to the Oaks in McAllister on my own free will. My third day there, I went to a doctor's appointment and talked to a psychiatrist. They asked deep questions, and I couldn't quit crying. They called the police to take me to Carl Albert Mental Health. I was scared. I expected straitjackets and padded rooms, but it wasn't like that. I fit in. I met Luke Morrison, which is a preacher down here now. He was staying there when I got there. He was living in the Panhandle at the time. They kept me 17 days telling me that most people there actually were gifted. Kind of felt like I was on Star Trek or something. Before I'd left, a buddy gave me a recovery Bible. I decided to open it up, and I closed my eyes and pointed, and it was Romans 7:14. I couldn't believe those words were in there. I'd been trying to say that, but I didn't know how. There it was in the Bible, struggling with sin. I hated what I was doing. It was sin living in me. I was miserable. Well, after 17 days, I was there long enough, I was answering the phone some. Dr. Bowden even offered me a job, but I had to be discharged 6 months before I could be hired. He said he thought I'd be a good asset to McAllister. I was just going to stay there, so I went to the Hope House, which is a homeless shelter for women out of rehab. Oh, I had to start my 90 days over, though, after the mental hospital. So on my certificate, I had 4 months written on it. But anyways, I couldn't find a job. I had to move back. I ended up getting me a place in Poto, and every dealer in Poto moved in, it felt like. So I just packed up and went to a shelter and left all that behind. I got me another place, and my oldest son's uncle wanted to come visit him, but never left. We ended up getting together. That last extremely violent relationship didn't hold a candle to what I got into. I'm telling you what, he showed up with a sack and one needle. I ended up getting Hep C. I lost everything. He was choking me out not even a month into our relationship, accusing me of cheating. During our relationship, I got accused of cheating with at least 15 people. I did once. He would beat me for not telling. I did, telling him I did, and say all you have to do is tell the truth and all this will stop. So I lied and said I did and still got beat. I had to make up details and memorize in case I got questioned again. I had no one to turn to when I got with him. He turned everyone against me. I was in prison. I would leave, and I had a couple people I could go to, but I couldn't carry a conversation. I didn't fit in. All my mind revolved around was him. I would skits out and go back. He was worse than a drug. I actually stayed clean most of the time being with him because I knew if he got high, I was getting beat. I had to stay on my toes. I never knew what to expect. He was literally possessed. We moved to Norman for a while, and he beat me. I acted like I was going in the store to pee and ran out the other side of the restaurant, and they called the cops. The cops let him take my car, and he never even had a license in his life. The car was in my name. They took me to a women's shelter and dropped me off. I didn't know what to do. I met him to pick me up the next morning. Oh, when I moved back, ended up moving back, and we got an apartment, and we got into it, and he put a hole under my eye, and my mom ended up showing up. I haven't even seen my mom in a year. And me and her ended up saying we were going out to eat. And whenever we went to eat, she asked me, she was like, so what do you want me to do? What do you want to do? She knew what was going on. And I was like, I'm just leaving it all. I'm leaving. I'm not going back. Well, he ended up posting where I was working at. And he showed up at my job, talked me into going back. And I did. So we went to the shelter, got all my stuff, and we went to Fort Smith. I don't remember a whole lot. He beat me for 5 days, and then he wanted me to call and say this guy that he thought I was cheating on him with done that to me. And I did, and when the cops got there, I told the truth that he's really the one that done that. And so the cops swarmed the apartments. My ribs were broken. I had bites all over my body. That hurt worse than anything that has ever happened to me, and I don't know everything that happened, honestly. He sexually assaulted me. They moved me to Ardmore until after his court. I got depressed and got back into the Hope House in McAllister. I ended up getting high there, so I moved back. It wasn't long after that he got out of the county. He married a girl so she would put her house up to get him out. Of course, got a hold of me. He talked me into writing a statement saying some made-up name, and I don't remember what town in Arkansas done all that to me. Charges got dropped, and 2 weeks later, we got into it, and I was going to get out of the stop sign, and he gassed it and turned the wheel, and I had to hold the door handle, and it flung me down the road. I know how I'm still alive. Thank you, God. It was a graceful roll. I was covered in road rash. We got back, and he went to the shower, and I escaped. He caught up with me and was trying to rear-end me, and so I darted towards the police department. He called and told them I stole his clothes, which was stupid because I was covered in road rash and had choke bruises all over my neck. And all I had of his was what I was wearing, because he wouldn't let me go to the car to get my own clothes. He thought I would leave. He knew I didn't have insurance and thought my car would get impounded too, but they let me go. They said just because I didn't want to press charges, that didn't mean they wouldn't. Like I said, I couldn't really function away from him. I went back the next day. We moved into a nice house right after that. I stayed very few nights in that house. It was very scary. I had gotten behind on my car payments, and I'd left him so many times. He had my car impounded, so I couldn't leave so easy. I'm telling you, the most scared I've ever been in my life is thinking I was probably going to have to maybe take a life. All I had was a bat, and if I could make it to it. I knew I had to swing hard enough to take him down if I was going to make it out of that house. I had to do a good job. I said earlier the man was possessed. I didn't know what to do, but he was full-blown evil at the moment, so I started praying out loud and crying to God. He dropped to his knees, breathless, snapped out of his trance. That's why I'm standing here today to tell this story. God. We had went to town soon after, and he went in the store, and I took off running and got a ride back to Oklahoma. I stayed away after that. I never went back in that house. Left all my belongings again. I moved to Spiro with a friend to help his mom out, who was in really bad health. I cooked and cleaned for a place to stay and was gone on the needle bad. I still talked to my ex on the phone, but I wouldn't meet up with him because I knew he wouldn't bring me back. I ended up going and meeting him the day after his birthday, after a guilt trip, and I was right. When it got dark, he told me, you know I'm not taking you back, right? But this time, it's a win-win situation for me. He had plans for us to check in the Army base in Altus, Oklahoma. He said he would win one way and held up a knife where I'd just go. I wasn't getting away again. I knew he wasn't lying. We left around 8 the next morning from his mom's. We were going down Wheeler in Fort Smith and had a flat. He had his car completely packed down with the stuff from the house he had packed, both his and mine. He lied when he picked me up, telling me he was staying with his mom and couldn't unpack it there. That's one reason I agreed to go. We did stay there that night, though. When the tire went flat, he started tripping. What do I do? What do I do? I said, take everything out and change it. Thank goodness his tire tool was stripped. I sent him inside the business we were parked in front of to ask the guy if he could help him. And the guy said, I believe I have a tire tool. Let's go around back here. Well, I took off running when they went around the building. Found a way back to Oklahoma again, and by the grace of God, my grandma said I could move in with her again. I came down hardcore, slept, I can't tell you how many days, until I couldn't even walk. I done good for a few weeks. I got a wild spurt and started hanging with a new group, and they really skipped me out. One night I thought everyone was plotting against me, so I just took off walking. I was so numb from the inside out, I don't even know how far I walked before I got a ride. I cried out to God that night. I got a hold of an old friend and went to his house, and I kid you not, God spoke to me that night through him. He told me quite a bit. I've got confirmation on all but a couple of things that night. Jennifer being my witness, I told her about it, and 3 days later, he preaches on it. Wow. I'm not going into detail on all of it, but I will say God told me that I'd know when it was my time. Oh boy, did I. I still lived kind of wild or tried, but convictions were being poured out. I still got high some, but not like I was. I definitely didn't enjoy it. I had went 2 weeks straight without it, and Jennifer had sent me a video by Isaiah Salvador, warning this might upset demons, and I watched it. I got the strongest craving to go get high. My son had told me the day before, if I ever did again, don't come back around him, and I did anyways. Realization hit. I did love my kids. Maybe it was something stronger making my decisions. When I got that deep into my thoughts, I felt like I was being suffocated and nothing was there. My body was drawing up. I knew it had to be spiritual. I called my granny, my Pentecostal granny, at 3 o'clock a.m. to pray with me until I could get a hold of Jennifer. I came to the church that same night on a recovery night, ready, I'm talking more than ready, to be set free. I surrendered my life to the Lord. Me, Jennifer, and four more went into Pastor Heath's office, and they began to pray with me. My body gave out on me and fought against them. I wasn't in control. I got set free. I didn't think I could have had oppression because I believed in God. I knew He died on the cross for my sins, but meth is not called the devil's drug for nothing. It opens a door that deliverance can only close. So much evil goes hand in hand with it, and you're blinded. The devil, of course, isn't just going to let you live without temptations. He don't want to lose anyone. After my deliverance, I did fall more than once. The first time I called Jennifer, and me, her, and a few of the girls met in her shop and prayed through it. She told me to turn on the radio and drown out all the whirlwind of crazy thoughts on the way home. Hard love was on, just what God wanted me to hear.
Trading punches with the heart of darkness, throwing the blows with your fear incarnate. Never going till it's stripped away. The part of you has gotta die to change. In the morning you gon' need an answer. Ain't nobody gonna change the standard. It's not enough to just feel the flame. You gotta burn your old self away. Hold on tight a little longer. What don't kill you make you stronger. Get back up, 'cause it's a ball love. You can't change without a fallout. It's gon' hurt, but don't slow down.
Get back up because it's a hard love. Well, I done good a while, and somebody comes knocking on my grandma's door with a pipe and a sack. I was lost for a month. The devil really almost had me for good. I'm telling you, I fell asleep in the woods, and the evil sounds that surrounded me that night was horrific. It was like I was like, God either has me or this is it. I woke. I made it through the night. God had me again. I didn't know what to do, so I went back to my ex. Like I said before, I stayed sober with him. I honestly thought it might work since God was in the equation. We were just on different levels. He preached a message on either chasing the giants or the grapes. Me and him wasn't fighting or anything, so I left church and went and got my grandma, and we went to Fort Smith and packed up my stuff, and I've been with her ever since. I ain't going back. Nope, can't do it. I'm going to be obedient to God. I choose God. He's been there for me all along. I choose God. I'm still lost on some things when it comes to my ex, but God will reveal it if it's meant to be. My ex has warlock down his arm tattooed and crossbreed on his chest. I'm not digging into that though right now. Maybe not ever. All I know is I'm free, and he who is free is free indeed. But my deliverance, I got set free from. I messed up a couple times, but I got set free from 20 years of being on meth, half my life. I'm 40. I was 40 whenever I got my deliverance. And I've done meth 20 years. Marijuana, cigarettes, vaping, cussing, mental health. I take no mental meds. Um, a lot of other things that I just probably don't want to list, but and I was healed from Hep C. Like in the beginning, yes, we had a pastor come down from Poto, and we had a revival, and he asked for if anyone needed healing. So I came to the front, and I said I would like to be healed from Hep C. And so he prayed, and I know that we have the same God today as that's in the Bible, that and I never claimed to have an Hep C again. I knew I was healed that night. I knew it. I went to a doctor's appointment, and they sent me downstairs to do lab, and I went back to my appointment. They were like, "You're gonna have to go back downstairs again because we can't show any signs of you ever having it." So I went back down. I went downstairs, and the results come back negative too. I did take medicine for the 2 months that they told me just because I had 4 years of positives, and but they couldn't find any signs of me ever having it. So I went through. I took the meds, but I'm over that now. And that's it.